Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to SF Live. I'm your host, Myrna Lim. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have a very competitive race going on in 3 levels in San Francisco government. We have the mayor's race, we have the sheriff's race, and we have the district attorney's race. We have 3 very, very qualified people running to be the leader in the district attorney's office. Tonight, one of our favorite candidates, of course, is somebody who has been a trial lawyer since 1975. He has worked for the district attorney's office, if you might recall, when he ran against Arlo Smith in 1995. He has worked as a public defender and is now in private practice and has been a trial attorney for the last 30 years. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bill Fazio.
Thank you, Myrna.
Hi, Bill. How are you?
Hi. It's great being here this evening.
Great. So let's talk about your campaign.
Sure.
A lot of people that I know have voted for you, and you have a loyal following in the voting public of San Francisco. Why do you think that is? People like you and they say, look, this guy has all the experience that the district attorney should have and represents. Why do you think that?
Because that's true. I do have all the experience. I've been here all my life. I'm a native San Franciscan. I grew up here, raised my kids here. My kids are raising their own children here. I've been in law enforcement in one capacity or other, administration of justice, if you wish, as a prosecutor and as a private defense attorney since 1975. I went to law school here. I went to USF. I went to San Francisco State University. I went to City College. For all you native San Franciscans, I graduated from Lincoln High School. And I put myself through school. I just like a regular blue-collar kid who grew up in San Francisco, had no aspirations, wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, worked hard, was a printing pressman. And I like to tell people it took me longer to get my journeyman printing pressman's card, my union card. It took me longer to get that than my law degree, if you could believe that.
Wow, that's incredible.
And then I went to the DA's office. I had a real passion for trial work. I used to actually pinch myself when I would have a trial and say, my God, they're paying me for doing this. This was wonderful. It was creative. I was helping people. And then I transferred into the private area where I am now. And I decided that I was going to run again when I looked around and saw some of the individuals who were running this time.
Right. Now, let's see, as a trial lawyer, you've won some legal precedents. There are 2 cases that people can relate to today, but at that time was an opener. You broke new frontiers. One was a case that involved gay bashing, hate crime, and another one was the first murder conviction that involved domestic violence.
As a first-degree murder. Sure, I'm glad to.
Can you talk about
yeah,
those
you're
2
right.
cases?
It's actually been somewhat of a trailblazer, and particularly in those 2 areas. The so-called gay bashing case in the early 1980s, or some of you all might remember, these characters came out of Vallejo, California to come to San Francisco to quote-unquote beat up some fags, and they punched a guy out and he hit his head on the ground and he died. We prosecuted that case as a murder. After a long, horrible situation, the young man died a couple of days later after the injuries. We obtained a second-degree murder conviction of 3 of the perpetrators. The other case was the domestic violence, before domestic violence was bandied about as a serious crime. More often than not, prosecutors would only charge a manslaughter because of the relationship between the man and the woman or the domestic partners. But I charged this as a first-degree murder case because that's what it was in my heart of hearts. And we fought it aggressively, and I got one of the first-degree murder convictions in what clearly was a domestic violence where a man had killed his estranged wife. Rather than treating it as special circumstances, mitigating the fact I caused the jurors to look at it more seriously and used all my skills as a trial practitioner and as somebody who grew up in San Francisco and was aware of San Francisco values, how we oftentimes are at the forefront are people right here in San Francisco, and I parlayed that into a first-degree murder conviction.
Right. Now, since you've worked as a prosecutor and then now in private practice as a public defender, one would imagine that gives you a very good bird's eye view of how the legal system really thoroughly works on both sides. Stepping into the district attorney's office, that was one would think that that gives you a lot of tools to work with to enact some change, reforms, and so forth. So, in light of the problems we have today, as far as too many prisoners, and the fact that the governor is going to be transferring a lot of prisoners to the counties and to the cities, how would that affect your approach when you become a district attorney?
Okay, that's a very astute observation. Let me correct you one minor matter.
Okay.
After I was a district attorney, I became a private defense attorney. I never was a public defender.
Okay.
So,
all right. Okay.
so I had to run my own office, which I've learned to do very effectively. A lot of people consider me a very prominent private defense attorney right now.
Yes.
So what I like to think I bring, based on what you just mentioned, a prosecutor's experience and a defense experience, is a well-balanced approach to the administration of criminal justice. It puts me in a unique position. Myrna, I've matured dramatically in the last 15 years plus, having been a defense attorney. Not being single factor, non-dimensional, only a prosecutor, only a defense attorney. I think I bring the best of both of them together. Coupled with the fact, of course, that having lived in San Francisco and being able to experience what it is to be a San Franciscan, and thereby knowing what San Franciscans want. Not somebody who's moved into the city recently, not somebody who may live in San Francisco but works out of the city. I have those attributes and that experience, and that's how we're distinguishing this campaign from the other candidates. Bill Fazio, the difference is the experience.
Right. Now, here's my observation when I sat in a courtroom with one of the judges, that you go in there and basically the place is kind of dark. I mean, dark meaning that most of the defendants are minorities and so forth. And it makes sense because they do not have that kind of access to the legal system, money, power, so forth. And then you have a public defender who stands up before a judge at the preliminary hearing, and the judge turns to the defendant and says, "I'm sorry, but your public defender got called to a trial. Would you take this particular attorney?" And then the defendant, stands there not knowing what to do. Never been asked that question if that's the first time, and then having to make that kind of decision. Now, obviously, that's on the public defender's side, but as a prosecutor, that obviously affects how you're going to prioritize and how you're going to handle your cases. So how are you going to approach that?
Well, one thing you should never do as a prosecutor is take advantage of a situation where the defendant was put in a particularly weak position through no fault of his. I mean, you use the evidence that you have in your knowledge of the law to do justice. That's what it's really all about. Prosecutors should only be concerned about winning. Defense attorneys are concerned about doing what they can for their client, but prosecutors have a higher burden. And I think as having the experience I have and the background I have gives me such an added benefit and incremental level over any of the other candidates running for district attorney.
And, okay, let's talk about the debate that you guys have been having. You seem to be talking a lot about the 3 strikes law and the death penalty. How do you approach that? What distinguishes you from the others?
Well, 2 of the candidates, Ms. Bach and George Gascon, take the position that although they say they're not in favor of the death penalty, their statements belie their actions, because they then say that I will have a committee to advise me. And my position is, if you're the district attorney, the buck stops there. You don't need a committee to tell you to do something particularly that you're not going to do. Mr. Onek and I agree at least on one thing, and we agree that under no circumstance will we seek the death penalty. The difference is that I've been there and I've done it. I have tried several capital cases. I had a person sentenced to death in 1980 only to have the conviction overturned because of some judicial error 20 years later. So I realized before that case ever was over that the death penalty provided nothing to the victim or the victim's family. It does not provide closure. It does not. It's not fair. It's very, very expensive. And there's over 700 people on death row right now, Myrna. If we executed 1 person a month, it would take over 60 years to clear the backlog. It's not going to work. It's a false promise. It's illusory. I will not engage in seeking the death penalty.
Okay. Now, one thing, public interest law, even though the position you would have would be that of a district attorney, as a private citizen and as a public leader, as a public official, you will have a lot of resources at your fingertips. And part of the resources that you would have would be to be able to attract, to to attract attention to certain areas within the law that you think need work, that would then prevent all of these people getting into this legal system, what would your priorities be as far as juveniles and?
Sure. Juvenile justice is an excellent place to start. The juvenile division in San Francisco District Attorney's Office has always been relegated to the back. I would bring it to the forefront. I've been out there and I've worked with it. So one place as a prosecutor, you can get young people who are in the system, get them out of the system, make certain they don't come in. But I'll take it one step further.
Okay.
I'll get the District Attorney's Office into the local courts. I'm sorry, into local schools. A concept I call legal lives, based on a program from the East Coast, where the district attorney comes to the court, to the schools, adopts a school, interacts, provides better information, better free flow of information back and forth, and then having, as I said, based on my experience, again, remember, experience, that's the difference here. I will be able to use San Francisco values in determining what kind of cases to prioritize. Everybody agrees, of course, a dangerous, violent criminal should be taken off the street for society's protection. But other offenses can be diverted out of the process. You know, as a defense attorney, I've had this incredible case where a very elderly Asian woman who'd been addicted to methamphetamines all her life gets arrested for possession. And the district attorney wants to put her in prison for 8 years. That's counterproductive, absolutely ridiculous. And that kind of attitude still exists even though the current district attorney says it doesn't. But I'm here to tell you it does, because I'm in court every day and I see that. That applies to some of my clients. Those people will be treated rather than prosecuted.
Would, in terms of percentage, going back to the governor's plan to transfer a lot of the inmates to the cities and counties, in terms of workflow, the fact that the budget is getting cut everywhere, how much of a percentage would be nonviolent crimes that you think could be diverted into other areas, like, you know, areas that would be helpful to them more than them being prosecuted?
Well, basically, in order to go to prison on a nonviolent crime, there has to be some serious extenuating circumstances. For example, if it was a white-collar crime where there was a lot of money involved and the defendant profited and he hurt a lot of people, even though that's technically a nonviolent crime, people may argue that is violent, but technically it's a nonviolent crime. Those kind of individuals should face the consequences of state prison. But other kinds of cases, prostitution, drug possession, even minor possession for sale offenses, that should be prioritized to a much lesser degree. I mean, let's face it, we've pretty much lost the war on drugs. I think the district attorney should take a more compelling road and look to the police department and say, I don't want you hanging around 16th and Mission Street and buying in $20 bags of marijuana and then arresting somebody and clogging up the courts. We don't need that. We need you to concentrate on things that crime on the muni, violence on the muni, things of that nature, and education. All of these things will factor into my position as district attorney.
Okay, so you become a district attorney. Day one, what would your business plan be for the functioning of the district attorney's office?
The district attorney's office would have to be revamped, as I said before. Juvenile justice is a priority, but fortunately that doesn't take up a lot of the time, because fortunately there's not that many individuals who go through there. Most of the cases are misdemeanors. That takes up the majority of the case time. I would supply what's I'll call triaging, like they do in the medical profession, to misdemeanors, to make certain that the district attorney gets involved even before it comes to court, so he could remove those people who are going to be removed sooner or later. If he removes them sooner, they don't take up county jail time. They're back on the streets where they should belong, because they were arrested for something that can't be proven or shouldn't have been arrested, or is so inconsequential that there's not going to be a prosecution even. So we deal with the misdemeanors, get them out of the system, educate and train my deputies. There's smart men and women in that district attorney. I probably know more of them than the current district attorney does, because I'm in court nearly every day. Isn't that kind of ironic? And I would give them the opportunity of using.
And you work with a lot of them.
I absolutely do, and I think a lot of them will actually support me, although they can't do it publicly because their boss wouldn't like that. But they will support me. I know they will. But I will give them the discretion to do what needs to be done. If they make a mistake now and then, they'll learn from that mistake, and that's how we get through life.
Right. Okay, I think that a lot of people would agree that if the public approaches the different candidates in terms of levels of experience on the job, I think that you will be way on top there. Now let's talk about your campaign. Okay, you have the ugly reality in San Francisco, you've got two machines. You got the Willie Brown roast back machine.
I've heard that.
And you got the progressive machine, and you're right here in the middle. You have the most experience, but unfortunately, you do not have the resources that obviously the machine provides. Now, how are you going to overcome that? How are you going to get your message out? How are you going to get, people to say, look, I'm the best guy. You know me. I'm from the city. I was born here. You know my background. And what sort of help do you need talking to people?
Well, that kind of goes back to what you said originally. Right. A lot of people voted for me. They continue to vote for me. Right. There's a certain loyalty because they know I'm the best candidate. Right. And the issue is I have to get that out there. If I can meet them, I could get them, to paraphrase an old Sam Cooke song. Right. If I can meet them, I could get them. But as yet, I haven't met all of them. And through forums like this, right, and people who will talk to people, right, and I have to certainly raise a certain amount of money. I've been relatively successful in the past in doing that, right, getting the message out. When I get the message out, I find that I'm very, very well accepted, right, because there really is no comparison. Here I am, and here the other candidates are. The other candidates have never been in a San Francisco courtroom. Not one of them have actually stepped into a San Francisco courtroom as an attorney. Right. I'm there, like I said, almost every day.
Right. Right. And how do they get a hold of you? What are your
right now,
communication channels out there?
My office is my campaign headquarters, 234 Van Ness, right, 415-437-2300.
Okay.
And we are gearing up this campaign. I came in late, but as I said, I came in because I feel I have something to offer to the right, citizens, yes, and when they see and hear this, that I will be their next district attorney.
Right. If people want to volunteer, or do they...
They could call me at the office, and I'll deal with them directly if I have time. If not, right, I'll turn them over to a trusted campaign aide who will assist me.
And you have an email address?
My email right now is my general email, williamfazio@yahoo.com. Mm-hmm. Our webpage is under construction. As you know, I came in less than 2 weeks ago. Right. But I'm hearing really good things. I'm hearing from some sources that a recent poll was conducted, right, and Gascon, the current district attorney, as you might believe, was pretty high up. But I'm showing a great deal of strength, much to the surprise of my colleague who informed me of the poll, right, that I was in a good second, with the other two candidates trailing badly with single digits.
Well, that's kind of understandable. I mean, you ran for County Central Committee, right, what was that, last year?
Yes,
you
right,
didn't even do anything.
I absolutely did nothing. I got elected based on name recognition and ballot placement. Now, of course, this is a much more serious race.
Yeah, of course.
It's going to be considered, and I have to get out there. So I pretty certain, I feel real good. I was encouraged by those poll results, and I know that I have what it takes to be, frankly, all humility aside, to be the best district attorney San Francisco has ever had.
I think a lot of people would agree. And unfortunately, such is life, the good guy, the best doesn't usually. It
doesn't always, but
machine politics, especially in San Francisco.
I think we talk about machine politics. I'm going to talk about the politics of the people. I'm going to bring it to the people.
Let's talk about the politics of the people.
We talked about Jeff Adachi when he ran for
exactly,
public defender the first time. He was outgunned and outspent by his opponent, but he turned it around. He turned it to his advantage, and I think I'm in a perfect position of doing this time. I mean, the current district attorney had no idea that morning that the mayor, and I don't know what he was doing as his final goodbye to San Francisco, appointed someone to district attorney who's never been in a courtroom, has never really been practicing a lawyer. So we can't let that stand, in my opinion.
Well, how about the fact that you guys can, all of you can debate on that issue. But I guess, the other issue would be, how the current DA is perceived by the office and, the cases and the justices.
I know that I have a lot of internal support from that office,
right,
but I've told some of my enthusiastic supporters who work in that office that I appreciate that very
right,
much. Show your support at the ballot box, but please be careful what you say and do publicly, because unfortunately in San Francisco they are all at-will employees,
right,
and I am evidence of that. You may recall when my boss thought I was going to run against him 16 years ago, he fired me.
Oh yes, as a matter of fact, I read your case.
Yes.
But you lost that because you were a policy person.
Right. Well, we settled out of court.
Right,
we dropped it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was good. I was doing some research.
Oh, you're a law student. You're on top of that stuff, aren't
so,
you?
Anyway, as far as money goes, okay. I mean, let's talk about seriously about fundraising. you're gonna need a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Okay. I mean, you're gonna need signs. You're gonna need
Mailers, TV,
mailers,
perhaps, whatever we can do. Yeah.
television, you know, the whole works. Okay. I mean, so how do people contribute to your campaign?
Well, they
How
could
do
contact me, 234 Venice, right here in San Francisco, where I've been
Right.
for the last 16 years.
Right.
My phone number, 415-437-2300. Leave a message there. Somebody will get back to them.
Right. Right.
And we will be having concerted fundraising in the near future.
Right.
Reach out just through, hand to hand, and also through some fun fundraising projects. One thing about all of my campaigns, they've always been fun. Anybody who's been involved in them has had a good time. This time we not only want to have fun, we're going to have fun and we're going to win.
Well, you've had some seriously close campaigns in
Right.
there.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the last three, it's like, okay, Bill Fazio is going to win it, remember?
Right.
And Kamala Harris just kind of came out of nowhere, and then, suddenly
Yeah.
the last minute she has all of these monies.
Yeah. Well, the difference of this one is really the experience. I mean,
Right.
I feel so comfortable about that talking to anybody. My campaign slogan is "Experience the difference."
Right,
Or pause.
right.
Experience is the difference.
Right. Okay, we only have a few seconds left. Any parting words? Again, the telephone number?
415-437-2300, right here in San
Okay.
Francisco, 234 Van Ness Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity of reaching out and meeting people like this. This is the way we're going to win this election.
Thank you so much. And good luck, Bill.
Thank you, Myrna.
I know a lot of people who are like, waiting for you to declare. And they keep on saying, is that guy Bill Foster going to declare it or not? And it's like, August, is he going to run? And suddenly he did declare.
Yes, we got it out.
So
Yes.
anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And please participate in this coming election. This is the one time when people rely on you to make a difference in our great city. Thank you so much, and good night.